But another thing I wanted to ask you about, and that you alluded to earlier as well, is President Biden's nominee for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is up to replace Stephen Breyer once he retires at the end of this session. And I wanted to get some of your reaction to what she said thus far. We're recording this on the second day of her confirmation hearing, so there may be more that comes out later on during questioning. So keep checking on the reload to see what happens. But we do have a couple things that she said so far and some of the stuff she said in the past. However, we don't have any actual ruling from her that we can look at on a Second Amendment case. What is your takeaway on her attitude towards the Second Amendment? She said that she will follow the precedent of Heller, and that she believes the Supreme Court established the right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental right. But obviously there's criticism or concern over her personal view as opposed to what she thinks precedent has been. Do you share that?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, she's a progressive nominee for the Supreme Court. Once she gets a lifetime appointment, what she says to the Senate doesn't matter. Yes, I mean, she's got to say that, just like conservative justices have to say that, well, Roe v. Wade is the law of the land, I respect precedent. She's got to say Heller's the law of the land, I respect precedent. Mm-hmm. Once she gets a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court, Katie bar the door. She can change her mind on anything, and no one's going to be able to stop her unless they have the votes for impeachment, which they never will. So she can say all of these things to senators and give them the platitudes that she needs to get through her confirmation process. But I don't think anyone, left or right, thinks if she gets to the Supreme Court and there's a case to revisit Heller, would she jump at the chance to reverse it? Probably so. Or when they get new gun rights cases that accept Heller as the law of the land, will she, like the other liberals on the Supreme Court, view it as narrowly as a right as possible? So yes, you have the right to keep and bear arms inside your house, but don't you dare walk outside your front door with your gun, because your right to keep and bear arms doesn't extend there.
Yeah. And obviously you've seen the gun groups come down on either side of this in the way that you would expect, right? The gun rights groups are opposed to her nomination, and the gun control groups are supportive of it. And I think largely that's because of President Biden, who's the one who nominated her, obviously, and has a very long track record of being aggressively pro-gun control and wanting all kinds of new gun bans and restrictions put in place, even though he, as you alluded to earlier, has not been able to actually accomplish those things over the last several decades here. But one thing that interests me, and I wrote an analysis piece on the Reload about this, is some of her background, right? Biden explicitly said that he was going to nominate somebody who was a Black woman this time. And so this doesn't mean that Jackson is not qualified for the position, but it does indicate that her ideological commitments were not the top priority necessarily when making this decision. And there are a few things in her past that make you wonder if she has something of a libertarian streak in her history. For instance, she was filed an amicus brief on behalf of the Cato Institute and a conservative think tank. Now that dealt with the Gitmo detainees, so it wasn't gun related. But obviously, Cato is a famous libertarian think tank. And then also she spent time as a public defender, which we've heard a lot about as well. And, she hasn't said anything about the Second Amendment during her time as a public defender. But there has been a recent trend of public defenders making the case that at least gun carry laws are enforced in a racially discriminatory manner and have, inequitable outcomes. So there's a few reasons why, beyond some of these boilerplate-ish statements she's made, you might think that Jackson could have a more libertarian streak on gun cases. Do you find any of that convincing?
Yeah. definitely think when it comes to the criminal law related to possession of guns, more likely than not, she would. For example, one thing I hear from public defenders a lot is, for example, the use or possession of marijuana is legal in a number of states. If you fill out a gun permit with federal law, you got to check the box. Have you ever used drugs, or do you use marijuana, or things like that? Disproportionately, I guarantee you, the prosecutors, when they find a black person in possession of a lawfully purchased gun, will go after that, and they won't with a white person. There's real clear racial discrimination. I was a public defender. I wasn't given a choice. I had to do indigent criminal defense, and I saw it. The way that a black person who was an indigent defendant could be pursued, or even a white person with an indigent defendant criminal attorney, compared to someone who had money. There are clearly different ways prosecutors proceed, and it does give me a little bit of hope in that regard, that she may consider some of that. But overall, I don't expect her to be anything other than a progressive. Progressives never disappoint on the Supreme Court when it comes to progressives.